It's the question so many people are asking. Why won't the Albanese government commit to raising welfare? As with so many things in Ozpol, it's sold as complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It's a political choice.
Now here we are with an unemployment rate as low as it has been seen at any time in the past 50 years, and yet there are still about 1 million people who are reliant upon these payments to meet their needs.
When Labor won the election last year, expectations were pretty high that they would do something about the rate of jobseeker and other social security payments, which have been pretty much ignored for the better part of 2 decades. Labor went to the election with the slogan, "No one left behind."
It says a lot about our great country that the son of a single mum who was a disability pensioner, who grew up in public housing down the road in Camperdown, can stand before you tonight as Australia's Prime Minister.
No promises were made when it came to raising things like jobseeker, youth allowance, the single parents payment, or disability support payments, or the allowances which can come with them. But given tweets like this from before Albanese was Prime Minister, people believed his government would act when given power over the budget.
Because we should always look after the disadvantaged and the vulnerable.
But instead, there have been vague commitments about the government looking to do what they can when they can. And it's the when they can, which seems to be the tricky bit.
Now, I acknowledge and I recognise that it is tough to live on the job seeker payment, and that's why we want to move as many people as we can off that payment and into good, secure, well-paid jobs.
Despite its own expert panel reporting that payments like jobseeker are so low they have become a barrier to finding work, the government still won't commit to raising them in the coming budget.
My job is to weigh up all the competing demands on the budget, to do the right and responsible thing.
And the Economic Inclusion Advisory Committee report is just the latest in a long line of reports which have found exactly the same thing. Most people living on social security benefits like jobseeker or the single parent payment are living in poverty. There are no affordable rentals in their price range, putting them at risk of homelessness if they have a home in the first place.
Do you think it's possible, however, that the government could take a look at this report with its urgent requests and do nothing?
We see governments ignore advice all the time.
According to the Australian Council of Social Service, almost 60% of people receiving jobseeker are over 45 years old. 40% have a disability, 20% have cultural and linguistic diverse backgrounds, 13% are First Nations people, and 12% are solo parents. There are also chronic illnesses, mental health, care responsibilities, inability to travel, skill levels, all sorts of things which impact someone's ability to find and hold work.
80% of those people will have to rely on these payments for more than 12 months. Being cruel to people doesn't work.
You are putting people into extreme poverty, so they can't make their basic payments, and we're talking about rental costs before and how they have been going up.
Australia might have record unemployment and a skill shortage, but that doesn't mean that there is a suitable job for everyone. For entry-level jobs, which are most likely what people who are unemployed for more than a year apply for, there are approximately 15 applicants for every available job. We know that if people stay unemployed for 5 years, they are unlikely to ever work again. They get left behind. Putting aside that a certain level of unemployment is built into the framework to keep inflation down, meaning we rely on thousands of people staying unemployed to take one for Team Australia, more than a decade of policies which undermine the labour market means we have more long-term unemployed people than ever. Entry-level jobs are diminishing. Changes to income support means more people have to stay on the job hunt even when their circumstances don't allow them to work in a job for what we would consider the normal way.
Simply putting people into poverty doesn't help them get a job. So yes, there does need to be an incentive to work, but at the moment, the job seeker payment is so far below the minimum wage, it is ridiculous. When you put people under this extreme amount of financial stress, as we are doing at the moment with job seeker, you do make their mental health a lot worse. We know that. The evidence is there.
Anthony Albanese and the Finance Minister Katie Gallagher, who relied on the single parent payment after tragedy struck her family, are great examples of what can happen when a person receives support when they need it most. And now people are asking for that same chance. And the cost of living crisis means we have hit a critical mass. which is why you were seeing Labor backbenchers, about a dozen at last count, start to break ranks and publicly call for a raise to the rate from their own government.
It's really important that we actually enable people to live dignified, meaningful lives.
And so the government has a choice. It can choose to prioritise lifting people out of poverty or not.
And there's options on the table. There's $250 billion of stage 3 tax cuts. To stick to something that was legislated in 2018, why would you just stick to something that is going to benefit mostly the wealthiest Australians?
Yes, the budget is in trouble. Yes, there are lots of competing pressures. Yes, there is some help coming in the form of childcare relief, energy bill assistance, and possible tinkers around the edges of some allowances and age thresholds. But none of that directly helps someone who can't afford to eat or fill their prescriptions, let alone travel to a job interview.
Some of the stories, you've got people who, for them, buying light bulbs is something that they consider a luxury. So they are moving light bulbs around their house.
It used to be said that politicians could ignore welfare as an issue because it wasn't a vote winner or loser. By that, they meant that the majority of Australians just didn't think about it. Well, it seems they're thinking about it now, especially in the context of the stage 3 tax cuts and huge figures being spent on defence. Why isn't the government committing to raising the rate? Because it is prioritising other things. The government can react to this new pressure or not. We'll find out soon enough. What is for sure though is that this time voters are very, very focused on what Australia's priorities are and who is being left behind.